So just to make sure everybody's in the right place at the right time, this session is called Future-Proof Learning, Building AI Literacy Through Competency-Based Education. And we'll be looking at some of the strategies, the competencies for AI literacy, and asking the question, how does this promote inclusivity at our organizations and at our schools? And so I am Dr. Christina Agvent. During the day, I'm a program director for a Master's of Teaching and Learning program and Education Leadership program at an online university. And in the past, I have also been I'm just admitting some more. In the past, I've also been an academic program manager for an MED program as well. So I come to you with experience in higher ed, but I also have been a classroom teacher in the K-12 environment. I've been a school director in higher ed. I've been an adjunct professor all the way up to what I'm doing now, which is a program director. And when I'm not working at the university, I have an organization called Trifecta Education, which I founded several years ago, and I do educational consulting, and I specialize in artificial intelligence, and I have an actual competency-based framework that I have developed, and that is called AI Engaged. And so this framework helps to prepare teachers and students alike for integrating AI into competency-based frameworks. So today I've broken this down into two parts. One is ideas, and during that we'll do a quick review of what is competency-based education, so we're all on the same page and have a common understanding. We'll talk about AI literacy and then some of those key competencies that are necessary to foster AI literacy and be AI literate. And then in part two, we'll be talking more about how to do these things. How do we integrate competencies into our curriculum? How do we adapt our approaches? How does artificial intelligence help promote equity and inclusivity? And then spend a little bit of time talking about, well, what do we do for assessment? How are we assessing our students on their literacy, AI literacy skills? So without further ado, I'm going to get started, and we'll pause for questions. And so let's just start here at the very beginning, right? Part one, with our ideas and the foundational elements of what I am presenting for you today. So let's just get right down to the basis of the session, which is competency-based education. I'm going to guess that if you're in this session, most of you are already familiar with competency-based education. Perhaps you're using it in your organizations. Is anybody, just a show of hands, you can use the little hand raise button down at the bottom. Are you using competency-based education in your organizations right now? Is anyone? Okay, so one. All right, we've got one so far. Okay. If you're not, the good news is what I'm about to tell you and share with you today can also be woven into a more your standard academic curriculums that are not competency-based. And so it really is a flexible model, these competencies, in the way we're moving forward. So what is competency-based education? Well, we're stepping away from that sitting in the classroom and reading books and taking tests and writing papers, and we're doing more hands-on. We're looking at key skills, right? We're looking at what are the skills that our students need to be successful as they move out into the global workforce from our institutions. And so you might find competency programs in nursing. I do see that a lot because we're talking about the actual skills that nurses need to have in order to be successful in their environment. And so we're moving outside of that book-based, classroom-based, predetermined curricula. We're doing this today, this tomorrow, and looking more at the skills that we want our students to have, and more importantly, the skills that our students want to have as they're moving forward. And this aligns really well with the demands of the AI era, because things are rapidly changing from day to day. I have presentations that I did a month ago that I'm updating, and professional developments and workshops, because nothing is staying the same in AI. There are new additions. For example, OpenAI is coming out with 2 new models shortly. They're boosting up their base model, the 3.5 model. And so that's going to change what you can do with that product. And so things are changing. By focusing on skills, and rather than a set core curriculum that's inflexible, we're able to add skills, move skills around, change the skills as what's happening around us is also changing. So why competency-based education? It allows for a level of personalization in education. It empowers teachers to identify those competencies that each student may need or want, and that may be different for each student. You may have a student who comes into a classroom with a predefined set of skills. Well, we are going to work on new skills for that student. We're not going to keep them in the same level as someone who's coming into a program with no skills. So it really enables that targeted instruction and support for students. It also can allow for customization of pacing and progression to match individual needs. When you're looking at skills, you can keep practicing that skill until you get it over, and then trying it in different scenarios, and really working on something so that when you move beyond the classroom, you have that skill and it's automatic. You get into the workforce and you're like, oh yes, I know how to do this. I learned it. And it also ensures that all students, are being challenged. That example I gave right at the start of, hey, we don't want someone who's got skills already coming into a program and going backwards. We're going to be able to challenge and support our students appropriately, which also gives our students a sense of agency, right? Ownership. They can lead their learning. It fosters self-directed learning, which is really important, and something that if you're working, especially in higher ed in the undergraduate world, a lot of times we see our students coming into college without those self-direction skills, because they're coming from schools where there are bells and there are homework assignments on the board, and this is what you do here and now. And so this is enabling students to take more control and more responsibility, and foster their autonomy so that they can really take control of their learning and move forward at their pace. In competency-based assessment, it enables real-time feedback, right? So if you're working on a skill and something goes wrong, okay, let's stop right here, real-time feedback. I am also working with a company that works in virtual reality, and they're teaching competency-based skills for firefighters in virtual reality. And in virtual reality, when there's a mistake made, the tool alerts them, it gets the red X, oops, you didn't do that right. And so you can really focus on real-time feedback rather than, oh, I just did a test, I can't wait to see what my score is, I think I did really well. And you have to wait to find out what you've done if we're talking about a more traditional pen and paper type atmosphere or environment. So we can really track learner progress very clearly and succinctly. And this feedback loop of, hey, you've got it, or this skill you need more work on, enables those students to keep moving forward. And so because our students are more actively engaged in their learning process, of course, they're more engaged and more likely to have a deeper understanding of the subject matter and really immerse themselves until they've mastered it and become successful with the skills that they need and the workforce. And of course, these skills are relevant to what the students want to learn and do. And so when we have skills that are rooted in real world applications, it brings greater meaning to the engagement and the learning. And we can then also craft experiences that go beyond that classroom environment. And so I want to pause here just for a moment. Did anyone have any questions about anything that I've said about competency-based education? Feel free to unmute yourself and shout it out. We can keep this somewhat informal. Okay. So now we've got the basics or a foundational understanding of why competency-based education and a focus on skills is can be a powerful framework for learning. And so when we talk about skills, I want to jump right into AI literacy, which is a group of skills. And so skills, competencies, they all tie together. And so you may have heard of, well, I'm sure you've heard of digital literacy and data literacy. These are things that we've been teaching and hearing about and reading about for years, right? So with our digital literacy, it's the ability to understand, evaluate, and integrate information in different formats. And that's facilitated by technology. That might be skills to research, organize, communicate, right? Data literacy is the focus on the ability to collect, manage, evaluate, and apply that data critically. So it's the complete data life cycle. It might include processing and visualization, reflecting, and looking at the implications of these tools on society. So we've got digital literacy and we've got data literacy, and now we've got a third peak here, which is AI literacy. AI literacy is not a new term in that it was just made up, 6 months ago when AI and ChatGPT really started taking off. AI literacy is a term that has been around for quite some time, and it addresses what people need to know, do, and understand, much like digital and data literacy, as it relates specifically to AI. You will find numerous definitions of AI literacy. I did a literature review to see how people were defining it, to locate the commonalities between those definitions, and then to create my own definition, and that's okay. You can create your own definition. This is not something that is set in stone. So from my perspective, AI literacy is this multidimensional concept, and it encompasses the knowledge and skills needed, and we're going to see these same words that we saw in digital and data literacy, to understand, evaluate, and engage with AI technologies. And it starts all the way at the beginning with foundational concepts. What is AI? Applying it in practical settings, and being able to evaluate AI technologies, and most importantly, to me, considering its ethical implications, right? We don't hear a lot of people really digging into those ethical implications. We hear right now, we see a lot of educators and schools being bombarded with, use this tool, use that tool, how about this one? And teachers and schools are adapting tools, but are they pausing to look at, how are these tools made? What are the policies of the development company of this tool? What are the potential implications for society as we develop this tool? Starting to pick up. In Europe, they've started to create policies. The United States came out with a statement on AI. It's pretty broad, and it doesn't really give any sense of regulation, but we're moving in that direction. And so One thing I always encourage people to do when they're starting to work with AI in their schools is figure out their own definition of AI literacy. What do you think are the most important skills and foundational knowledge that students need to be successful and to be literate in using AI tools? Did anyone have a question about AI literacy at all? Or their own? Has anyone ever heard of AI literacy? Seen a definition before? Are you talking about it in your schools? If not, this is a great time to start, right? Let's talk about AI literacy. So we've got AI literacy, and I've already said there's this, you need knowledge and you need skills or competencies to build AI literacy. From my perspective, we're looking at three main buckets, three main core concepts when we talk about AI literacy and the use of these tools in education. We're talking about digital empowerment. We want our students to have that foundational knowledge to feel comfortable and confident in using these tools and understanding how they work and interacting with them. And we want these tools used for creative innovation. We want building, constructing, creating. We're not talking here about taking a prompt and putting it into ChatGPT and writing a paper. We're moving beyond that. We're talking about creating things like the bots, the GPTs that are now out there that you can download and use from OpenAI, for example, right? How can we use AI creatively? How can it serve us in different industries? How might we use it in nursing? How might we use it in education? How are we going to use it in marketing? And then we take global connectivity. We are not in this alone, right? We are no longer isolated or kept aside from other countries or even states. I mean, we're all connected now in this global way. And we've got to make sure that our students go out into this workforce, and even while they're in school, are using this in a way that's ethical, using it in a way that's for the good of society and in ways that don't bring harm to others. And so I started with these three individual buckets. As they cross over in the center, all three of those are supporting AI literacy. So with these core concepts, excuse me, it was then possible for me to say, okay, well, what are the skills that students need for digital empowerment? What do they need to know to be creative innovators? What do they need to understand to be global users of AI in a way that's ethical? And so these three buckets help to shape some of the AI competencies that I have developed and created, which we can take a peek at here. Now, these are just a high-level overview. They're not broken down into very specific skills. We don't have time for that today, so I just wanted to give you an idea of what you might want to start thinking about as you're looking at your students and starting to integrate AI. So number one, right, they need to have a basic understanding of what it is, how it works, the different types of it, and how's it used in the real world, right? Just foundational concepts. Ethical implications, right? We move from that foundation to, all right, well, what do we need to think about ethically when we're using AI tools? These are things like privacy, cybersecurity, bias, decision-making, responsibility for the use of the tools. How do these factors impact society? How might this impact the world? Right? So we're looking at ethical implications. And here's our friend data literacy, because data literacy supports AI literacy, right? They need to be able to interpret, analyze, and draw conclusions from data, right? That is still part of what we want our students to have. And if we've got data literacy, of course, we still want to keep digital literacy in there. comprehending the digital tools that are integral to AI creation and management, coding, AI software utilization. And here's creativity and innovation, right? We want our learners to be equipped with the skills to critically evaluate, consider their benefits, risks, and then build, innovate, right? We want them, this number 5 leans on number 2, right? We want them to be able to consider before they create and innovate. And so starting at that foundational number 2 of ethical implications and building on that, all right, we've got that now. How I've just built this tool, how can it be used? What are the implications of it? Where might we go from here? Thinking about AI policy and governance. How can AI use to solve, to be, how can AI be used in a way that is in alignment with organizational or institutional beliefs, right? What do you have for policies and governance in your school? You may remember that the new, the first reaction in many schools was a knee jerk. It was, hey, we're banning this because this is not a tool we want to use. And so when we ban, we're putting a straight halt. And so it's now becoming thinking about AI policy and governance. How can we protect? How can we make sure that these things are used for good? And then we have critical thinking. Oh, I apologize. I think I messed, I have an error in the order of the definitions here. My apologies. So we want to make sure we're using these tools to support critical thinking, right? We're not using these tools to replace critical thinking. We want it to support critical thinking. And then finally, we want to look at AI in the workplace, right? Where is it being used in industries? How is it changing the nature of work? How might these tools be leveraged in the future and specifically in their future careers, right? So these 8 overarching buckets or themes are what I believe to be the key competencies that we need to start developing in our students, right? So these are to get you thinking. These are not the actual competencies, right? Because they would be more clearly written, more specific. These are just an overview of the areas in which we need to move our students and start thinking about bringing them in. And if you look back to the key concepts, those 3 domains that I put up at the beginning, you can see that these learning competencies do not just sit in one area of the domains. They overlap because they support each other. They do not sit independent of each other. And that's important to remember. And a great example is when we're talking about innovating and creating, we're also thinking about the ethical implications. None of these pieces are alone on their own island. We've got to bring them all together, and we've got to have them supporting each other and moving through these so that it's a comprehensive set of skills. I'm just going to pause here. Any questions, thoughts? Does anyone have has anyone's organization identified any key skills or competencies that they want either their associates or learners to have within that environment? So, and this, right? So what are schools doing? What are we doing, right? Where I have seen schools that are integrating tools without educating their teachers on how to use the tools properly, without talking about the ethical implications of using a tool like ChatGPT, which has biases, inherent biases in it. So if we don't build the skills, this leads into people using tools that they don't know how to use. You would not send a doctor or a surgeon into a room, into the operating room, if they do not have the skills needed to complete the job. Same thing. We cannot use these tools if we don't have the skills and competencies that are necessary. All right, so now we have a basic understanding of what competency-based education is and how that focus on skills can benefit our students. We understand, hopefully, the importance of identifying the skills and competencies that are needed in our students to foster AI literacy, which goes alongside of data literacy, as well as digital literacy. So this is all bouncing around in our heads, but what do we do with it? How do we possibly bring all of this together in a way that's understandable for all of our stakeholders? And so let's get into that a little bit today. I have heard many schools from K-12 up to higher ed say, well, we're going to put together an AI training for our students, and our students are going to take that AI training and then they're going to go off into their programs, and that'll be sufficient. It's not sufficient, right? Think back to what I said at the beginning. Things are changing so rapidly. Sure, you could put together a course on AI and share some of those basic foundational elements, but it will never be up to date, right? It's going to constantly keep changing. So when you're talking about large numbers of students who might be using these tools, yes, it sounds great to just put a course together and call it AI 101, and everybody takes it as part of their orientation, or they take it their first year. That's a Band-Aid. That's just a Band-Aid. That's going to give them one, maybe two, maybe they'll learn some ethical considerations of those key competencies. It cannot possibly give them all of the skills that they need to achieve AI literacy. So what we've got to do is identify where are the intersections between what we're currently doing in our courses, competency-based education. And this is where I say to you, it can also slide into schools that are not using a competency-based framework. So you have to identify what's happening right now in your curriculum and what are the AI skills that go along with that. And you have to bring them together, right? So this ensures that they're gaining their AI competencies in a way that complements and enhances their existing learning paths. 75% of employers are looking for new hires that have skills in artificial intelligence tools within their field, whether that's marketing, for example. That's a very high number of people looking for employees or associates with AI skills, right? And so one course that sits alone and is not woven into their field of study will not get them that job. What people are looking for right now in the workforce are someone who can say, yes, I know how to do that. I can do that manually. I can do all the research. I can come up with all the solutions and the data, whatever it is you need. And I can also do that with an AI tool. And then I can make a comparison, because we know AI isn't infallible. It makes mistakes. And then I can do a comparison and give you the best possible product or the best possible outcomes for that business owner. And so it's important that we're bringing these skills in, right? We're bringing them in to their fields of study. And I promise you, you can bring these skills into just about any field. I think it would be very difficult to find a field where AI is not touching right now. And in the chat, thank you, Megan said, my English department is really against it. But you're using it with caveats on bias and plagiarism risks, and students are bringing real world examples of people who aren't paying attention to those warnings. So yes, digital literacy, that's part of it. Paying attention to when things go wrong, right? I heard a story the other day about an organization who initiated a new bot, and the other day that bot started popping up in everybody's Slack channels, just kind of talking and doing things and making statements and calling itself sentient, right? So something went wrong there. So it's not infallible. There are problems with it. We may develop tools that don't work. We may develop tools that might not be the answer to all of our problems. So it's important that we pay attention to what's happening so that we're creating and innovating in ways that actually do benefit, as opposed to just solve a quick problem and move on. So bots are a great example of this. They can work really well. You can set up a bot on your web page, and it can answer great, initial questions, but at the end of the day, it can't do everything for you. So looking at what is the role of the tool, what can it do, but where is still that human element, right? So teaching that we're putting AI and that human element together in our learning environments, so that when they're moving on to that workforce, they're doing so with a really solid set of skills. I'm sure we have all heard of Bloom's taxonomy, right? So the latest reiteration of Bloom's taxonomy is Bloom's digital taxonomy. So they've taken Bloom's and they've tied it, the lower order all the way up to higher order thinking skills, and they've brought it in with a focus on technology. What role does technology play in this? Or how can technology be used to support the building of skills and competencies? How can AI be used in each of these levels of Bloom's taxonomy, so that we're scaffolding learning, and we're using AI tools, and we're using technology to do so. So we're taking Bloom's with those lower order to higher order thinking skills, and we're weaving in AI to support, right? So it still weaves together, whether you're talking about non-technical skills or not, right? Bloom's digital taxonomy is a great tool to use as you're thinking about, okay, AI literacy, what do we want them to know and be able to do to become AI literate? And as we're planning our, as we're planning our learning, our curricula, as we're building our competency frameworks, how are you incorporating Bloom's taxonomy? Because we don't just want to sit down there at the bottom with the remembering and the understanding. We want to use this to guide the skills that we're teaching our students. So let's just take a quick little peek at this. And so I'm looking at those foundational concepts. Let's say we're looking at that first competency that I shared with you, which was developing an understanding of the foundational concepts of AI principles. Okay, well, off the top of my head, if we go the route of we're building a course and our students are going to take this course and they're going to learn about AI, they're probably going to, be stuck if it's an orientation course and it's multiple choice and it's, they move through it on their own, self-directed. A lot of it's probably going to sit in those lower levels of blooms. By weaving it, and I'll show you here, you can bring it all the way up to those higher levels. So, for example, students who are able to apply knowledge about core AI principles within diverse contexts here, foundational concepts, how do they apply it? Here's level 1, explain, right? They can explain the foundational principles of AI as they relate to the subject. Low order, that's fine. How can they do that with technology? They can create a blog, they could design a website, they could make a video. So explaining, level 1. Level 2, we're going to apply, right? So now we're applying AI tools and concepts to define learning objectives, right? And we're going to do that within a specific time frame because these are outcomes. We want them to be focused. If it's a program outcome or a course outcome or a competency level that they're trying to meet, there's usually a specific time frame in which we want to do that. So we can understand, we can apply these tools. Now, this is open-ended here. This can be history. This can be math. This can be science. This is open. You can weave this into the different areas. It's multidisciplinary. And then you can jump up to analyzing. Okay, how might these tools, their applications, their limitations, how might they impact users? How might they impact society? So we want to make sure that we're moving up, we're scaffolding. We know what it is, we know how to use it, we know how to analyze it, and we know how to evaluate. So an example of evaluating, we may evaluate our own learning goals, right? Incorporating knowledge of AI on the selected area of interest. I went to college, I want to be a teacher. Wait a minute, things are changing, AI is out there. Let's evaluate, how is AI going to affect my role as a teacher? How might it impact positively, negatively? It's still in my field of interest, and now I'm weaving that skill in. And then, of course, creating, upper level, creating and sharing is another way to look at number 5. So maybe I will then create my new career path using that incorporates AI technology. I will create a pathway that will build the skills that I'm going to need to be successful when I graduate that include AI, as opposed to AI course. And here we are taking AI and bringing it into our courses and our learning experiences, and doing that in a scaffold way so that we're building the understanding, they're using, they're analyzing, evaluating, and actually creating. And I'm sure you can see how this connects with those 3 buckets, right? Creating and innovating. Sharing is the global connectivity that can be part of the analyzing, evaluating. So we're really staying connected to what our core focus is. Let me pause here once again. Does anyone have any questions about how we can take a competency and using blooms, create learning outcomes, and then subsequently objectives, right? Your objectives would come from your outcomes, and create and weave them into their curriculum. Does anyone have an idea of how they might do that in their own curriculum? Has anyone done this so far? Any examples? I can give, my daughter is in a course at the university where I work, and she had an assignment the other day that asked her to prepare a discussion board prompt, and it had a bunch of questions, and it said at the end, if you use AI to answer these questions, tell us what you used as your prompt, tell us what you got as the output, and how you revised it. Right? That's a great, I mean, right there, simple, right? it's working on, prompting, and I'm recognizing that I need to analyze the output from these tools and evaluate and make sure that it's accurate, make sure that it's ethical, and then I submit it. So that's one quick, easy way to do so. And so, which leads me into assessment strategies, such as that discussion board, right? Discussion is one way, and online courses, especially, that students are being assessed. Sorry, I'm backwards. So the beauty of competency-based education is the authenticity of the assessment strategies. They are using a tool, they are demonstrating a skill, they need to weld these two pieces of aluminum together, and they finish and it falls apart right there. Real world, right? Oh, you want to be a welder, but you just did some aluminum welding and it fell apart. So let's look at this and figure out what went wrong, right? AI, can help you design tasks and can be integrated into these assessment tasks in meaningful ways. You can take AI, in the example that I gave for the discussion board just now, that's one way that you can bring these authentic learning, authentic uses of AI into your assessment so that you're supporting the skill development. Self-assessment is a great tool, and when you're looking at artificial intelligence and education, and in competency-based education, they really go well together. It promotes metacognition, self-reflection, self-directed learning. They're taking ownership, they're monitoring their progress, making adjustments to their learning strategies and their outcomes. So authentic, self, and of course, peer. Peer assessment, facilitating the exchange of feedback among students. Going back to that discussion board example, we can say that, the students are interacting with each other and providing conversation and critical assessment and feedback on what each other are saying and building on it, expanding on it. And so it really can help in that building those skills. These are the three types of assessments that really work well, and AI can also help facilitate these assessments and kind of give you a little boost, right? And so when we're looking at CBE and AI literacy and using AI tools, we ask the question, all right, well, how is this supporting inclusivity? Personalization, right? The personalized learning paths and competency-based education can accommodate diverse learning styles and needs, as does AI. We're closing the gap by teaching our students, every student who's coming into our university or learning organization, AI competencies that lead to AI literacy. We are preparing all students for a future where AI is driving our workforce, where it's all around us, right? We can bridge that digital divide because we can do that right within our institutions, right within our courses. It doesn't rely on what does the student have or have not at home. It's multidisciplinary. You can bring this into any discipline, any field of study. The competencies will weave in. You will find opportunities to bring in, however many competencies you decide on to build AI literacy and to scaffold them into your learning programs. And then adaptive technology, right? So AI in itself, AI-driven adaptive technologies can really tailor educational content to pace and style and ensure that learners are receiving support that's tailored to their need. And so the personalized learning pathways in CBE, we can see how they align with our AI competencies, right? To ensure that each student's learning journey is supported. It makes AI literacy education more accessible and effective for a diverse range of learners. So the big picture here, if we had to sum this all up in a big picture, why am I going to use a competency-based framework, or otherwise, why am I going to incorporate AI literacy skills into my program, my classroom? Because we're really looking at diverse skilling, right? We're equipping a varied workforce with those AI skills, right? It's not just limited as they're going to come out of their programs, whether they're going into marketing or into human services, if they're going into even a field of, even out of high school, if they're going into the trades, it's important. The trades are using AI. I've seen schools that are using augmented reality to work on large pieces of equipment that otherwise students wouldn't have access to. Elevator repair, right? It's not like you can just go and repair an elevator in your basement, but you can when you have an AR tool. So it really enables diverse skilling. It fosters equal access to AI education and career opportunities. And it cultivates a mind of continuous learning and adaptability, because our world is constantly changing, and AI especially is moving at a rate of technological advancement that we really haven't seen before. So bringing these tools in, keeping those skills, weaving them into our programs, sends that message to our students, right? We got to keep learning. We got to keep adapting. We have to keep moving forward with these technologies so that we're all able to contribute to society in a meaningful way. And also we are providing the workforce of tomorrow. I do have 2 books. The AI Engaged Future-Proof Education is a competency-based framework. Some of what I spoke about today is in that book, and so it is available on Amazon, and it does really expand on the discussion of AI literacy and ethics. I talk about the educational landscape. It is a research-based book. And then this other little guy is more of a how-to prompt. And so these are 2 options that I have available. And I would love to just take a moment to thank you for joining me today here. And we have 10 minutes. If anyone has any questions or comments, I would love to have a conversation. Does anyone want to share initial impressions of weaving AI competencies into your programs or courses? Does it seem like a challenge? Does it seem exciting? Are you thinking, no way, are we ever going to be able to do this? Because it does seem a bit of a large task, right? So you start small, start with those foundational pieces. If you have a question and you don't want to shout out, you can absolutely put it into the comments, and I'll be happy to address it in the chat or the Q&A. Well, thank you again. It seems like we're all feeling confident, or perhaps a little overwhelmed. I know it's a lot. We moved quickly through all of this. I appreciate your time today. I am available. You can feel free to email me. I love questions. I love providing other educators with support. If you go to my website, I do have a newsletter, and I encourage you to follow me on LinkedIn. I post every day about AI and education. Sometimes I'm posting a tool, a handy tool. Sometimes I'm posting breaking news, such as the partnership between OpenAI and the University of Arizona, which, by the way, that partnership is for student operations. It's not the faculty and it's not for the students, right? So it's really for student success and campus operations, that partnership, using AI tools within that environment. I think the total was something like $34 billion if they wanted to give all of their students and faculty access to OpenAI. So that was a no-go, and they're really focusing just on the behind the scenes. Well, thank you all for joining me, and I look forward to hearing from you. Please, again, follow me on LinkedIn, sign up for my email, and above all, should you find yourself with questions, feel free to reach out to me via my email at Christina@trifectaeducation.com.